Hello friends, welcome to this video. This one is coming to life because of questions that we got as follow-ups to other tutorials, either in blog format or YouTube videos, where we were downloading views and workbooks as PDFs. So the question has come up, can we do this for PowerPoints as well? And the answer is yes, because the Tableau development team is awesome and has given us this endpoint where we can make this happen. So I wanted to start here at the Tableau REST API documentation, because if you are like some of these other people who are asking this question, hey, is this possible? You could answer that part of the question yourself if you come out to the REST API documentation and you look at what all these different endpoints that are available to you, what kind of doors these open for you. Then once you get the hang of how this works, you won't even need me anymore, because you'll see the pattern of like, oh, okay, there's this endpoint that exists. I can do this, a little bit of this, a little bit of that in Python, and then what I want to have happen ends up happening. So let's bring that to life right here. We're hopping into my Python environment, which is a Jupyter notebook, and I'm going to start out by importing tableau-api-lib. That's a library that allows us to communicate with the Tableau server via REST API calls, and it makes use of all these endpoints that we were looking at out here, but makes it easy to use. So we don't have to rewrite this or find a way to send this information to the server and process all of this, because that's what the library is doing for us. Additionally, the library is going to bring in some querying functions for us, which will make our lives easier in terms of if you need to know information about your workbooks. For example, if you're trying to download a workbook as a PowerPoint, you're going to need to know what the workbook's ID is, so that you can, through a REST API call, say, hey, this is the workbook I want. Give me that as a PowerPoint. So let's see how this works. First of all, you get a nice shame-free picture of my credentials and everything. And I'll delete this. It's not a good idea to share your personal access tokens with other people. I'm doing this because it's a demo. I want you to see what it actually looks like, but I will delete this after the tutorial video. You could use a username or password. If you want to know more about setting up your configuration, check out the Getting Started video that's linked in the description of this video. So I have my configuration set up, and I've built this little environment inside of there called Devix that contains all that information. So that's the environment I'm going to point to when I establish my Tableau server connection. Now that connection's stored in this little variable called con, so I can use that to sign in. And now I can use that when I'm communicating with Tableau, in my case, Tableau server. This would work for Tableau Online as well. But I communicate with it to use those querying functions we were just talking about to get information about all the workbooks that are out here on the site that I'm connected to. So to give you an idea of what that looks like, we can just inspect this thing, and we can see that you get basically a table describing all the workbooks. And in this case, I think one that makes for a good example is the crypto price scorecard. And so I've just taken this ID and I've tossed that into a variable here called target workbook ID. So you find the ID that you want for the workbook that you're downloading, and then you make note of that ID so that you can use it when we come back and we say, oh, what was that endpoint that allows us to download a workbook as a PowerPoint? Okay, Tableau is calling it download workbook PowerPoint, and here is what that endpoint really looks like, or the URL. But we don't need to build that from scratch, remember, because that's part of tableau-api-lib. Or similarly, you might be using the Tableau server client library. They've probably implemented something like this for you as well. But now we can come out here, we can say, okay, how do I make use of that endpoint with this library? Well, it just so happens you can call on a method that really follows the same naming convention. And so this is con.download-workbook-PowerPoint, and we pass in that ID for the workbook that we want to download. So we will do this, and we will, well, let me actually make sure I run this in the right order. Then we will have this response, and that response has, the response from the Tableau server, which includes the thing we care about, which is the content of that response. If you were to just print the response, you're going to see what the status code was. In this case, this 200 code. If we were to go out to the documentation, we could see that if you have a successful request to the server, you're going to get a response code of 200 back. So in any case, this is successful. We have that response, but now we need to write that content to a file. So that's where we do this little bit of code where we say we are going to open a file of this name. We are going to write the bytes that are inside our response.content to a file, and that's what's going to give us our PowerPoint. And so we can now go out to that file and we can open this, and we are going to see that we've downloaded this PowerPoint. So as you can see here, keep in mind that every sheet that's available in that workbook is now, it has been printed to this PowerPoint. So if you are picky about what you want to include in this thing, you might want to be picky about what you publish to this workbook before you download it as a PowerPoint. So that's all I wanted to show you. With that, let's wrap up this video and hope to see you in future videos. Tune in, check out the Medium blogs as well. The YouTube channel's Devix, the blogs are Devix, or you could just look me up, Elliot Stom, and hope to see you out there.